Hi, everyone. This is Moni Singh, and welcome to the Teaching STEM podcast and the Teaching STEM video series. Today, I want to talk about the finding your what behind your STEM classes, and I want to take it to the next level. So, in one of my last episodes, I talked about how it's so important for you to figure out what are the objectives that you're going to accomplish with the STEM classes, specials, rotations that you're trying to offer for your students? And that is so important because when you are clear in the what, the activities that you do with the kids will actually enable the kids to understand the so what, right? If I'm learning about gravity, why am I learning about it? Why do I care about it? And it's very important that they see that because the more tangible it becomes rather than just a fluff, just a concept that they cannot touch or feel, they cannot grasp it. So you have to bring it to a point where if they're making a contraption, they understand the science behind it, they understand how it gets applied, and that clarifies the so what. I want to tell you a quick story. This was sometimes very early on in our STEM for Kids journey. And we were doing a program. It was themed on mechanical engineering at a school. And in the school classroom, we were doing a series of, different, the whole curriculum basically with the group. And we would have the teachers, the classroom teachers and the science teachers stand like right around. So they'll be in the classroom and just watching over the activities of the kids as the kids were doing those. And so I remember we were in this module, which was about the third law of motion. So we were discussing the laws of motion, and towards the end of that module, we actually had a challenge, an engineering design challenge, where kids were supposed to build balloon cars. So this is where you take simple materials and the kids build a chassis with the wheels on it, and then they put a balloon on it and then use the power of the balloon to propel the car forward. Kids were having a blast, right? They made their contraptions and they were racing the cars and just enjoying the whole experience. And that's when one of the science teachers walked up to me and she said, um, Miss Singh, I am a STEM teacher and I actually run various programs even outside of my classroom. And I have been doing this balloon car activity for quite some time. This is the first time I understand the science concept behind it. And I sat there and I listened to that and I was thrilled that we had achieved our purpose. I mean, we were able to show the science concept behind an activity, not just to the kids, but also to those teachers who were standing in that classroom. And that is the paramount aspect for you to consider, right? If you're doing just an activity, yeah, I mean, it could be fun in itself. The kids can enjoy it, they could be engaged. But is that the only criteria? There's another criteria, right? It's fun, enjoyable, all of that is great, but there needs to be learning that comes out of it as well. And that's why you need to think about this big picture of where you are heading to, right? What is that destination, the goal, and then planning out the journey to get to that destination. So if you haven't watched my the other episode about, I think we call it finding the what behind your STEM classes, definitely watch that. Now, once you have figured out the what, there are some characteristics of your STEM lessons, right? That's going to become important as you offer these programming to your students. Now, there are four of them, at least four that I want to talk about today, quickly, briefly. The first one is that you want to make it an immersive experience. I find a lot of times when people offer STEM programming, it's like a mishmash of activities, and it's kind of just put together and kids do lots of different activities. That's again going back to the purpose, right? You want to have a, a grand purpose on what you're trying to do. Maybe your intent is to give them a teaser, a sampling of different kinds of topics, and that's okay. And that's why you're kind of dabbling on different fields. But more likely than that, when you're offering a rotation or something that's going to be a special that runs for an entire school year, you do want to think beyond just that dabbling, right? You want to create that immersive experience where you've picked a theme and all of your activities build upon that theme. You bring in the other connections, you bring in, like for example, you might decide that you want to stay on a health biomed kind of a theme, and as you are building the progression, you might be doing some topics and some activities on the healthcare side, right? The human body, let's say. And then as you're building it, you might add on some mechanical engineering as you move into more the biomed side, right? Where maybe prosthetics and you bring in the mechanical sides. Perhaps during the year, you want to add some components of computer technology where you're encouraging kids to now provide their project ideas in a certain way. So you can introduce technology in it. So you're creating this immersive experience, but continuing on down that pathway where they're seeing this a holistic and a deeper view of that theme that they're working on. So immersion is important. Compare that to dabbling. Mm-mm. Dabbling is not going to result in the right kind of learning for your students. So go for immersion. That's number one. The second piece is going to be repetition. Repetition. So we all know practice makes perfect, and there are all these sayings. The bottom line is you have to get kids to practice something multiple times for them to really to have that learning stick, right? So I know that when we look at our lessons, any concept we pick. So I was talking about the laws of motion before. So if let's say we're talking and we are really delving deeper into the second law of motion forces, we would have multiple different activities, where the kids are getting hands-on, minds-on, exploring that concept in many different ways, because that then creates experiences, and those experiences, right, they create more neuron connections up here, and that's proven to show that the more connections that the children are able to make in the brain, learning sticks longer. So repetition is another important element to look for. The third is creation. So if you look at the higher order of thinking, right, in these progression as you're going creating immersion, you want the kids to start coming to a deeper level of understanding of the concepts, where now they're able to take that and build something, create something totally new, or a different model of something that exists today. So, for example, I know in my last episode I talked about if your community has something, a real big focus on, let's say, environmental aspects, maybe you could have some creation that goes into children making a public service announcement, or perhaps you could have them create an event where they are doing a food drive or bringing people in to do some, clean up a park, a local park. So those then start getting into more of the higher order of learning and application of that learning into as the kids are learning new concepts. And number four, and this goes into the emotional learning for the child, is to help them understand how do they deal with the dips. Now, what do I mean by dips, right? STEM fields are littered with stories of failures. I remember I was talking with a neuroscientist just a couple of weeks back, Dr. Frankie Lee. He's a brain researcher, and he told me that 90% of their experiments fail. Now think about it. If that's what happens in STEM situation, right? Because you're researching, you're doing some experiments, you may make something and they may not succeed in the first attempt. Now it's very important that children develop that ability to thrive even in the face of failure. So that requires mindset in taking failures also as steps towards success, right? You didn't find the right answer, you found the wrong answer, and even that's a step in the right direction. I know Thomas, you may know this too. Thomas Edison has famously said before that when he failed multiple times, I think it was like 10,000 attempts to figure out the filament for his light bulb, and he had failed 10,000 times. And then somebody asked him the question, "How do you feel about these failures?" And he said, "No, I haven't failed. I have just found 10,000 ways this will not work. So having that positive attitude even towards failure is important. And then there are other elements to it too, right? Keeping the child motivated, incentivized, and so you want to have programs and the classes, the lessons planned out so that they are modularized, which means that the child is able to finish something and they get some gratification of what they completed, as opposed to doing like a one super long project where you don't see an end. You're not getting like a feeling, a sense of achievement. You want to keep it as wherein there are some baby steps, there are some baby milestones along the way, so the child always gets a sense of achieving something, and that motivation then propels them to keep doing more. So those four elements, the key characteristics of STEM lessons, remember that: immersion, repetition, creation, and dealing with the dips. I hope this was helpful, and we'll come back and chat in the next episode. Take care, everyone.